Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. I'm Gaganjeet Singh from VAV, and I welcome you all to webinar on regenerative economy and market system approach for Atmanirbhar Bharat. This webinar is organized by Alumni Association of KIIT University in association with VAV. I would like to welcome today's speaker, an alumnus of KIIT School of Rural Management, Mr. Deepan Kumar Sahu. Mr. Sahu is from class of 2009 and he pursued MBA in Rural Management. I would also like to welcome Dr. Shyam Sundar Behura, Deputy Director Student Services, KIIT Student Activity Center. I'm honored to introduce Mr. Deepan Kumar Sahu, a policy expert and development professional with more than 10 years of experience and has expertise in policy design and implementation in the areas of innovation and startup ecosystem development in higher educational institutions across India. He has obtained his second master's degree in development policy from Korea Development Institute, that is KDI, a South Korean government policy think tank. He is currently serving as Assistant Innovation Director at Innovation Cell of Ministry of HRD, Government of India, housed at AICTE New Delhi, an apex body to regulate technical education across India. Mr. Sahu has been associated with AICTE since 2017 and MHRD's Innovation Cell since 2019. He is a core member of the implementation team for National Innovation and Startup Policy for higher education institutions. He plays a lead role in designing and implementation of numbers of the major national policy initiatives, such as Atal Ranking of Institutions on Innovation Achievement, Institutions Innovation Council, and MBA in Innovation Entrepreneurship and Venture Development (IEV), International Acceleration Program for Early Stage Startups. He also manages a portfolio of programs being implemented under AICTE's startup policy in academic institutions at AICTE. We are proud to have you, sir. And we have like KIT, we have Dr. Behura also from KIT University. You are the eminent alumnus of KIT University. We have seen you growing from 2009 to 2019, taking the position of Assistant Director at Innovation Cell. Now, without further ado, we will turn the time over to you. Sir, the platform is all yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Gaganjeet Singh. And thank you, Dr. Shyam Sundar. And also my thanks to Pro Vice Chancellor Madam, Susmita Samant Madam, and our beloved founder of KIT and KISS, Dr. Samanta sir. So actually, who is the person since I joined KIT in 2007, he is the person of inspiration and motivation, and I draw so many inspirations from his life, from his thought, and that keep on motivating me to take better and more challenges in my life. And as he has given the word concept of art of giving, and that's also I am also aligned with that thought, and always feeling kind of it's a matter of pride when I got this opportunity to being the first speaker of this webinar series of KIT Alumni Network. So thank you, Dr. Shyam, for this opportunity also for this. And with this, I will not take much time because already Gaganjeet Singh has introduced and briefed about my education, my work, where I am currently, and already the projects and programs I'm handling at Innovation Cell of Ministry of HRD and also with AICTE. So I will not take much time, but we will start focusing on today's topic, today's session, that is regenerative economy, and how we can develop a regenerative economy, and what kind of market system we should adopt so that will make our India Atmanirbhar. And just recalling 10 days back story when our Honorable Prime Minister sir has said that India should go and aim for Atmanirbhar. After he called for Atmanirbhar India, you can see that how everybody and everywhere the topic of discussion was, and also still Atmanirbhar is the hot topic for discussion everywhere. But there are so many confusions. What is Atmanirbhar and how it can be achieved? And everybody is trying to interpret and define on their own way. There is no standard definitions also, but today we are going to touch these points, and we are just trying to understand that what is Atmanirbhar mean and how we will understand it as by experiencing self. So let's go to the slide. I will run the slide, and I will explain one by one, and we'll try to go in a medium pace so that you all will observe, because I understand many of the participants from the student community, also maybe some faculty communities are there, and maybe there are some alumni members, those are already graduated and working in India or outside India. So maybe you are from the background of engineering or management or biotechnology or other streams. So what I'm trying to will use some less jargons, so that you will understand like as a layman point of view. So understanding the concept is important rather than understanding the definition or mugging of the definition. So that is the main objective of today's session. So let's go to the presentation. I'm going to share my screen. I hope it is visible to you all. So this is the things. Actually, I think it's not required at this moment. Let's go to the first slide. So we will start with asking a questions to ourselves. That means you have to ask yourself that you have to identify who you are. It's a very common question. I think if you have asked so many times, then definitely you have that answer. But you have not asked these questions any time in your life. Ask now who you are. But the choices is limited. So choice is like this, that are you a change maker or a change agent? Are you an innovator? Are you an entrepreneur or a job creator? Or you are an entrepreneur, like you are doing job but performing like an entrepreneur? Or you are a job seeker, or that means you are only looking for a job, nothing ABCD, right? Then the the sixth one is that none of the above, but I'm a good human being, right? You are thinking that you are a good human being, you are a responsible human being, you are caring for the nature, you are caring for the family, you are caring for the society. That means, and the last one, you have not yet decided and don't know who you are, right? So these are the seven options. So there should be only one answer. So the most appropriate one, whatever it comes to your mind, you just ask yourself and keep it to you. And if moderator will allow to post the answer, so they can post the answer in the chat box. You just type your answer, right? So I think moderator, is it permitted to post their, or in the chat box to post their answer? Then please allow them to post in the chat box. Okay.
Yes, I have given the permission.
Yes. So please take 1 minute, and meantime I will explain what are going to learn in the next 30 to 40 minutes. So the key learning objectives of today's session is that we will understand the sustainability. It's a more buzzword in the last 1 decade. And everybody is talking about sustainability. Everybody is trying to again define the sustainability, but still it is subjective in nature. And then another is called Atmanirbhar. And after this campaign by our Honorable Prime Minister, sir, now this Atmanirbhar word is also kind of buzzword, but still it is in the form of subjective. So we are trying to understand this subjectivity nature of this sustainability and Atmanirbhar, and trying to convert this subjectivity into objectivity. In objectively we will understand, so that we will able to implement it in our life or in practice. So that is a key objective, a learning objective from this session today. And linked to this, we will understand what are the growth models, and especially we will focus on capitalism and free market economy, because this is most most adopted or highly adopted economy among the most of the countries. except a few bigger economies like China and Russia and few other countries. In most of the countries, they always they are adopting this free market economy or capitalism approach. And also, finally, we will comes to understand what is the regenerative economy model and what are the approaches. And finally, we will link how the role of innovation and the entrepreneurship approach will play in the to attain this regenerative economy status. I hope you have the answer. So if you have done it, then just stop your thinking now, and then let's start the session. The first one is called what is sustainability. If now this sustainability is part of school curriculum also. So if you will go and ask a 7th or 8th standard school student, definitely he or she is going to tell the definition of sustainability. But I don't know, our generation or those are studying in college, those have not studied sustainability in the school time, they will be able to answer. But school students are now, at least they know the definition of the sustainability. They will tell that utilizing the resources for current use, leaving enough for the future generation to utilize, right? So this is the common definition everybody use, and you will find the first diagram that sustainability means it is economic, it is social, and also it will take care of the environment. And there is some intersection between all these three circles, and the middle core is called sustainability. So this is the kind of diagram or the concept or the narrative you will get everywhere, but do you mean by sustainability? But this sustainability is weak. This is a weaker version of the sustainability, because our system is not that much of perfect, and that's why an imperfect system came up with an imperfect form of sustainability model, and what we are studying now. But in the last 5 to 6 years, now this sustainability concept has been changed, and now it is not a circles interact, but it's a bigger circle is environment, that atmosphere that we live, and within that environment, the social is a subsection of the bigger circle, and within social, this is the economy. So this is called a one circle having two circles inside, but rather three circles are separate and interacting each other. So that is not the case. So if you can visualize these two things, then the first diagram is the weaker model of the sustainability, whereas the second one, where one circle having the second circle, and within that the third circle, which is called economic, that is called the stronger version of the sustainability model. So to make you better understand, let me run a 2 minutes video that will help you.
Hi, come on in, have a seat. So good morning, everyone.
Is it going through voice? Just for the check. Gaganjit?
Yes, it's audible.
Okay.
Please go ahead. Yes.
Hi, come on in, have a seat. So good morning, everyone. When's the last time any of you drew a picture?
Last time.
Today, we're here to draw a picture. So what you'll see here are some crayons, colors in each box. Choose your colors wisely, because there will be another group coming in after you and making another picture with what you leave behind. Thank you. So here we have the other group.
Everybody say hi.
Why don't we show the kids the pictures that we've drawn?
Yeah. Bye.
So nice.
Wow. Yes.
Why don't you show them what you drew?
It's all black. We all took away the bright colors.
I wish I wasn't this selfish, taking away all the bright colors.
Maybe we could have broken the colors and left half of them for them and for the next group.
Okay, so how many of you enjoyed this video? So if you like this video, then in chat box say yes. If you understood the concept behind this video, then say yes. If you not like this video, then say no. If you could not able to understand the concept, then say no. Okay, thank you. And we are getting so many responses. So in gist, I will say that there are two generations, which is current generation, and another is our future generation, which is just a small babies. So the resources were given very limited, but we people, when it was given the opportunity first to us to choose the colors, we choose the colors of our interest, and we have utilized all the colors. We have taken all the colored pencils, left only the black ones. See the kind of sufferings. It is a very, very live example in our practice. It's happening. It's happening. This is the actual fact in our life. So this is actually what sustainability means. We are not at all sustainable. Our system is not at all sustainable. You can say it is an innovation also. For the sake of innovation, we are just trying to exploit the resources rather making it sustainable. That is the point actually I want to bring to your notice, because you all are the creator of our economy, not only for our country, for the whole world. Whole world, you are the creator. You are going to create and architect the economy of the global. So if you have this concept, if you understand this, the gap and the weak points we have in our economic system, then definitely you will try to address this gap and try to bring the strength, and will definitely include the social, environmental, economic, and rather in a discrete form, but within a bigger circle, then smaller and then smaller. So economics should be there. We are not saying that if you are going to do some innovation or entrepreneurship, economic, finance, self-finance or self-revenue system, it should be there, but not should be in compromising or at the cost of environment and social. So this is the key message from this video and this slide. Now comes to the meaning of Atmanirbhar. I hope many of you are, more than 80 to 90%, those are watching this webinar, have either experiencing the hostel life or you have experienced in past this hostel life. So if you have experienced this hostel life, then I think you are the right person to understand what is Atmanirbhar means. And I believe you all will agree, when you have given the opportunity or you have been put into by force into hostel life, and initial period you came across with so many difficulties, but through the time, as the time passes, you have learned so many adaptive, innovative and responsive skills that made you to manage the budget, because you would have got the money from your parents or from the loan from the bank to pay your tuition fee, to have your pocket money for food, all kind of things. So we have developed a skill, management skill to manage the budget, manage the resources, manage the relationship with the senior, junior, other departments, other institutes like that. And also we have developed the skill set to manage the uncertainties, right? And you have developed the multitasking skills. Also, you have developed the adaptive, adapt to the collaboration and the co-creation, because being a student, always you make a team or have a kind of a group work through that, through the sharing, through this called the collaboration, the co-creation, and trying to be less dependent rather than depend on somebody for every work. So these are the skill sets generally we learn, we experience, and we inculcate being a life in hostel. So actually Atmanirbhar means this. If you will try to understand what is Atmanirbhar, if you want to feel it, then this is the actually Atmanirbhar. Nobody saying Atmanirbhar means that only produce what yourself and consume for you only. No, Atmanirbhar means work on your strength points and build on your strength points, work on your weak points, and convert that weak points into opportunities, and try to depend less, as much less, rather than trying over dependent on others. So minimizing the dependency, working on your strength and weakness, and converting these points into opportunity, and having all the requisite skills to convert these resources into capital is called Atmanirbhar. I hope you all will agree with this point. If you are agree with these things, then in chat box please say yes. If you are not agree, this is a democratic country, you are every right to say no. So it's up to you, but you have to say yes or no. Also another option is that can't say, but I believe being at this juncture of your life, this should not be the option for you say can't say. You choose either yes or no. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so in this slide, there are two very, very handsome pictures. One picture is Adam Smith and another is called Karl Marx. So these two, one is from the Scotland and another is from the Germany. So these two persons 200 years back, they gave two concepts. The first one, that Adam Smith, he gave the concept of capitalism, and this Karl Marx gave the concept of socialism. So they called father of capitalism and father of socialism. So because of these two concepts given by these two persons, the whole world divided into two parts. It's a very sad story, but actually everybody is trying to, a large number of countries, they are going for the Adam Smith theory given by him, that is neoclassical and neoliberalism theory. So then the second one is the Marxist theory by the Karl Marx. And now countries like Russia, China, North Korea, and these people are mostly for this. And the theory given by these two very eminent economists, now every countries are following, and we are now witnessing the tussle between these two thought process. So capitalist USA, Japan, they are trying to dominate over the socialism. Socialists, they are trying to dominate over the capitalism. They are just trying to prove that who is the best. So it's just a competition is going on since last 200 years. And because of this competition, it is just a loss to our global economy. This is not a healthy competition, I will say. It's not a healthy competition. And where India choose to become a balance between these two. So it is again another sad something, a story, but it has its own disadvantages and the advantages. I will come to the advantages later, but the disadvantage is that choose in between these two is always you are trying to delay the process of policy implementation, And because you choose a mid path, and that's why many times you will not get the support from the one side or the other side. And many times the policy you will bring, because of your balanced approach, the result is indecisive. Indecisive means you will not able to get or draw the proper conclusive conclusion or conclusive inference from all of your policy or the programs, because you choose to become a balance between these two, and you choose a mid path. So sometimes that's why in India, most of the programs we implement, sometimes you will find 50% people are opposing, 50% people are the supporting. Finally, government again decides something, okay, do this, do that. What happened to our this example is that lockdown. You just take the case of lockdown. When the first COVID coronavirus was identified or announced from the China, being that China is the socialistic country, it first implemented and enforced the lockdown in Wuhan, one city. But on contrast, European countries and the USA, because these are the capitalist country, for them market is the first priority. They said, no, we will not enforce the lockdown. And still they have not enforced, USA especially, and they are suffering. So, but on contrast, China has implemented and this controlled to some extent. And where is the India? Because India is not the completely capitalist, not the complete socialist. So what they choose? They try to implement the lockdown, but because of the social pressure, because of this so many social and the cultural pressure, they remove the lockdown. So neither we are strong, neither we are soft. So that's why you just see the result, how India is moving, how this corona part is. So it is kind of a economic system decides that your fate of that country. And economic system decides the kind of market it will evolve. And economic system decides the kind of base and infrastructure it will develop in that country. That's why I will come to in the next slide that how it is helping to develop and for the development of a market and the entrepreneurship. So these are the small pictures. I will not go in detail. So you just go to the below size scale, that is the government control and the personal freedom. So in case of socialism countries, you will find the government control system is up to 100%. Example is the North Korea, and the less somewhat is China. But if you go to the anarchy, where the no government system, even no system there to control, that is, you will find some African countries where this anarchy is you can observe. And in between, if some there are all capitalist and socialist countries are there, like Japan and Russia and other countries are there. So this is the where, because economic system decides the what kind of market will evolve, and that market decides is there any entrepreneurship will come and play or not, or what kind of business will it support. So in case of communism, the 100%, the socialism and communism, because it is a purely planned economy and government has a fully control over the system, they never allow entrepreneurs or the business to grow independently, because the policy is completely controlled. So if you are an innovator or an entrepreneur, I believe you will never choose to go to a country where this kind of economic system or the market system exists. Similarly, if you will go to the pure free market, like capitalist country like Japan and USA and other European countries, where everything is decided based on the market competition. And yet government role is minimum, but market role is important. And in that market, free market, the competition decides that who will exit, who will survive, and who will thrive. So in between these two, somewhere India lies. And in India, we call it as a mixed economy or a kind of balanced economy, but we are still inclined more towards capitalism. But we have the socialism in our approach. So actually, it gives the kind of entrepreneur will exist and also will do the business. So generally in the free market economy, and there is a high chance of innovative entrepreneurs will come and they will compete because they have that competitive advantage of innovation and intellectual property with them. But they will never prefer to go to pure planned economy, but they will prefer to go to mixed economy because they have certain risk mitigation mechanism, because there is a government system to protect these private properties or to protect these private companies. So the decision, more entrepreneurs and innovators, they will prefer to choose mixed economy rather than pure competition free market economy. That's why many entrepreneurs, many investors, many startups in current days or in the current years, they are preferring India as their market destination. So this is the kind of a picture, and being an entrepreneur, being an innovator, this picture, this diagram will help you to decide that where you want to play, what kind of risk level you can take, and how you are going to deal with your stakeholders, especially the government as a regulatory stakeholder, customers as a consumers. Okay. Now comes to the next slide. This is on neoliberalism. Actually, this is the extended version of the capitalism, where the corporates plays the bigger role. And when the corporate comes and plays the bigger role, then there is high chance of further distorting the whole economy. So what is this indicators of a distorted economy in the corporate capitalism? Especially when the corporates trying to play the role and they're trying to control over the system because it's a free market, or they're towards the free market, then there is an increase in the inequality and the poverty. And also there is increase in crime and instability. Also there is a high chance of social unrest. Also there is a increasing terrorist and Maoist activities. So you will find in many countries, those are having this corporate capitalism. These are the indicators you will find in that as a indication that corporates are growing and others are not much growing. Only certain portion of the population. Just take one example. As per the Oxfam report, only 1% of the population of the whole world, they own 99% of the wealth. So pathetic, so worrisome. See, 1% of the total population own 99% of the wealth. And if you will go to the number, only 500 rich people over the next 20 years, they possess 2.1 trillion, which is equal to our GDP, our country's GDP. This is the situation. And this is the called inequality, where actually our current economy is taking us. And in case of US, this one, the top 1% population of rich people of this US, this United States, their wealth increased 300% time in the last 30 years. This is, just imagine that how the things are going so badly. So I'm just trying to highlight only one growth model, that is called modernization growth model, given by Rostow. And I will not touch other the group because it will confuse you. I will just take only one model to cite that how the country are growing, and actually how comparing with China with India. So because everybody is comparing with China with India, so I'm just trying to correlate and compare with China and India. So you can see that in another economist, his name is Rostow, and he gave 5-stage growth theory. So what he said that the first stage is called traditional society, because during that time in 1950 and 60, there were not much industrialization. So during that time, he said that any country to develop, then first they have to start with the traditional society, which is more as agriculture, and gradually when their education level increase, then they move towards urbanization, industrialization, so that people migrate from rural area to urban area for their job, and they contribute back to the economy of the urban area. Also, they help in growing the industrialization, and that is called transitional stage, when at least 10% of nation's income invested in manufacturing or industry purpose, then we can say that now that country has reached to a takeoff stage. Now this is very important of takeoff stage. This third stage is very, very important. So when a country reaches to takeoff stage, now they have to move towards the maturity, standardization, maturing the system, operation, and further they will go for the mass consumption and mass production. Okay, so these are the 5 stages, and now I will go to the table where it is mentioned. You can see that all these countries like Great Britain, Russia, United States, Germany, Canada, all these countries has reached to the takeoff period during 1780 to 19 or before World War. Matlab, just before World War, they have already in the stage of the takeoff. And India and China, they reached to the takeoff after the independence of China in 1950, after the independence of India in 1952. So in 1952, both China and India were same. If you will say, we both were in the same stage of takeoff to become the industrialized, to become a developed economy. But in the last 60 to 70 years, what happened? What happened that China became the 5 times or 6 times bigger than India? What happened in the 60 years? Because China is a planned economy, but they brought liberalization in that economy, but still they had the control over the system, but they made some liberalization in the economy at the ground level, so that they started they just gone to the maturity stage very quickly, and after that they gone into the mass consumption and the mass production, right? So China adopted 2 approach. The first thing is that they focused on skill development of the people, to the very, very sophisticated skill development to engage in the industries or the manufacturing units or kind of things to produce. And government has taken the full control over the infrastructure. They built the infrastructure and they brought the system, and they invested lots of money on, or the capital on, human resource capital development, the skill development. And what they did, rather setting up the industry in the urban area, they started establishing the industries in the rural area. That's why what happened, rural area people got the job in their village or in that local area only, and also the urban specialist people like engineers, doctors, they migrated from urban to the rural for providing the other services. So that means they made rural industrialization rather than making the urban industrialization. So this is the key where China has adopted a strategic approach, and that's why in the last 60 years that brought the difference between China and India, and that and through this China gone to the maturity stage, and now they are high mass consumption stage. They are just about to in high mass consumption stage, and not only they are consuming in their own country, also they are supplying to the whole, they are the part of the whole global supply chain system. So this is the key intake from this slide, that what is the difference between how China and India, in how the growth trajectory has been different after 1952, though both were in the same stage of growth, right? So let's go to the next slide. So this is very, very important, extractive economy. So just try to understand that India was under the rule of Mughal for more than 600 to 700 years. Then under the British colonial for more than 300 years. So this 900-year period, India was under extractive economy. So what the extractive economy says, that the countries like European countries, when they colonized the countries in the Asia and Africa, so what they did, they just sucked the raw materials from these countries. They used the cheap labor available in that country. They just extracted, exploited, rather than reinvesting on these economies in the countries. And they took these raw materials to their own country, and they used the machines to convert. They added the value, and they again they sold in our country or the Asian or the African countries. So this is a typical example. The colonial economy system is a typical example of extractive economy. India was for more than 900 years. And after independence also, though we got independent, but because we have moving towards more capitalism and the free market economy, many corporates, big corporates, they are trying to accumulate the strength, accumulate the resources and power, and using this power, resources and the power as a strength to have a better negotiation with the government, also in the market, and they are started doing the monopoly. That's why government is bringing lots of policy interventions to break these monopolies, trying to bringing the also many startups, many innovations, promoting innovations, so that this monopoly in the monopoly of these bigger corporates in the market will reduce. And this is the reason why government is quite proactive in bringing lots of conducive policies, rather than and rejecting or the removing the policies which are restrictive, so that these small and medium enterprises, startups and innovations will start flourishing, also will offer equally competitive and better quality products with affordable price to the consumer, and that which will with a better solution. And the ultimate result of this extractive economy is that if this extractive economy will continue for long, then in addition to the monopoly and the corporate dominance, there will be a fragile economy where the bubble of elite wealth, and which will lead to the inequality, because there will be elite people will come with lots of money, and inequality will happen. But the example I gave, only 1% of the people having 99% of wealth. And finally, we all are observing, we all are witnessing, there is a corruption in the institutional behavior. There will be lots of corruptions, and there is a decision is in favor of the elite people rather than the common people. So this is actually India is going through this extractive economy since last 900 years. We have improved something some point somewhere, but still we are under the extractive economy. So this is, you have to understand that how, in which stage we are actually now. Let's go to the next. So this is a very interesting graph. If you will understand this graph, it will really will make you eye-opening. It's kind of eye-opening, right? So this graph, I took it from the GEM report. It is a Global Enterprising Monitoring report. It is quite old, but still valid. So the U-shaped curve you are seeing, it is plotted in the x-axis. I understand. I hope you all understand x-axis, right? In x-axis, there is GDP per capita in PPP, purchasing power per capita. So it is a value, right? It is a value of GDP. Just assume. And in the y-axis, this is the number of entrepreneurs from 18 to 64 age group. So if you will see the curve, you will find in the top one, Ghana, Zambia, Uganda. These are the African countries. They are top. They are the top. That high entrepreneurship activity happened there. And some countries like US, Switzerland in the right side, US, Switzerland, Norway, New Zealand, Australia, you will find there are also increasing the entrepreneurship activities. But country like Tanzania, Pakistan, Brazil, India, Russia, Myanmar, that I have circled, all these red ones, even China, you will find that the entrepreneurship is less. but they are the left-hand side of the graph. So what is the difference between left-hand side and the right-hand side? The left-hand side says that the country with less GDP, because the x-axis is GDP, the country with less GDP per capita, you will find more entrepreneurship activities. But these entrepreneurship activities are the necessity-driven entrepreneurship. What is the difference? What is the meaning of necessity-driven entrepreneurship? When somebody after studying, after graduate, not able to get the job, and because government is not well matured, so there is no job availability by the government, or there is no industry available in that country. That's why these people, even though they've studied, they're highly educated, they choose to start a small shop, small grocery shop, small cottage industry, small thela shop, small mom and pop shop, to survive, to feed their family, to feed their stomach for the livelihood. That's why they call necessity-driven entrepreneurs. So in African countries, the number says that they are the number of entrepreneurs high, but they are the necessity-driven. But actually, these are not good for the economy. On the contrast, in the right side, you will find that in countries like US, Norway, Switzerland, Ireland, New Zealand, Australia, where the entrepreneurship activity is high, also the GDP is high. But these entrepreneurs are the opportunity-driven entrepreneurs. They do some business based on some innovation, based on some intellectual property, IP. So their stomach is already full. They are not starved. There is no, their stomach is full. They have a good source of money to feed their family. But they are looking for the opportunities where they will do much and much better job. They can do much and much better business. That's why they focus on innovation as the key tool to choose the path of entrepreneurship. This is the contrast between necessity-driven entrepreneur in the left side, and in the right side, this is called opportunity-driven entrepreneur. And India, it is very still, I will say it is not unfortunate, but still I will say we are still in the left side and at the bottom. And as this is the value of 2010, I don't know actually exact where's the exact position of India, but I believe the red color that I put, it was not given by the graph, that I put India will be somewhere around like this, but so far we will not cross the bottom and crossing to the right. It is very, very difficult for us to grow, to become a developed economy. So this is the role where you all are going to play. So if you all will take the role of innovator and entrepreneurship, then making India push from left side to right side by crossing that bottom is very, very key, and the threshold for India to become the developed one. So in the next 10 years, if we all will work together and we will think, just triggering our creative mindset and work on problem solving solutions and come up with the innovation, then if we can make our country a startup country, if we will make our country as an innovative country, then definitely we will push our country's situation from the left side to the right side, and that is the where it will be game changing. What we are aspiring to be a Jagat Guru, that will only achieve if we will cross this one. So this is the key points, please note, and I believe this is the where you all will think about it. If you are in line with my thought process, if you are actually agree with my point, please say yes. If you're not agree with my points, please say no in the chat box. It's my sincere request. I want to see that how many of you are actually agreeing with this approach, or the whatever I've told you now, or you are agree or not agree. Say yes and no. Let's go to the next slide. So what India need? India need a approach where we can sustain that economy, and where the distortion happened in our economy will not happen. And that's why where regenerative economy model is the best one where we are going to adopt. And the sooner we will adopt this regenerative economic system, the more and more benefits we will generate, and that will make the system more sustainable. Because sustainability is not the outcome of this healthy economy. And if our economic system will be regenerative, then we can develop a healthy economy and which will be more sustainable. So what is the difference between the sustainability and regenerative? Because there is some difference. In sustainability, the system says that only we have to create the benefit for social, environmental, and health, whereas the regenerative system, it says that it is a whole health system of the whole health. Sorry, it is a health of the whole system. So it is a holistic approach rather than as the reductionist approach. So sustainability, still there are some connecting dots, and in regenerative, these connecting dots are connected. I think I will not, within just 30 seconds, I can cover this one. So just take this graph, just take sustainability. If sustainable is the midpoint, is the 0 point, and actually now we are moving towards the left. We are going towards more as a conventional mode of economy, where we are using mechanics, when we are using the more mechanistic designs, and we are applying the reductionist thinking by utilizing more and more energy. So whatever we are doing, we need lots of energy, and through that process we are wasting lots of energy, and we are generating lots of waste, and that waste were not reused. But whereas this regenerative system, where it says that it is a holistic thinking, where whatever we will do, we will try to depend on energy less and less, and whatever the energy we will use, the waste we will generate, it will be reused. So this is the different contrast, and we have to switch over from a degenerating or the conventional mode of mechanistic design of the economy to a regenerative and natural system design or holistic thinking mode of economy. So you can correlate these things with your body, right? It is just analog with your body system. So just assume that if you are not sleeping well, just think that if you are not eating well, or if you are not eating at right time, if you are not taking proper diet, if you are not exercising, if you are not sleeping for 6 to 7 hours minimum, and if you are taking lots of stress, what will happen? Your body will, you will get lots of disease, and then you will go to a doctor, and doctor will give some medicines, and then you have to consume to set that disease, right? To suppress that disease. But the life pattern or the kind of a living pattern that you have changed, that you have not addressed. But this regenerative approach, it is trying to address the whole system rather than curing the disease. It is trying to address the whole system. I think you can understand through the Ayurvedic and allopathic. In Ayurvedic, we trying to develop to address the disease at the root cause. Whereas in the allopathic, we're trying to address the only symptoms or it reflects. So sometimes something like this. So when whole body has the different organ system like heart, brain, eye, ear, nose, throat, hand, kidney, liver, but these are each organ system, but they are performing, but they are interconnected through the artery system, through vein system, and we are consuming oxygen, and it is removing the waste, and also we are leaving the carbon dioxide. So this system is going on. If this system will stay healthy, then definitely you will be healthy. Similarly, if the economy you will think about like a human being, if we will take the holistic point of view, then whole economy will be strong, or whole economy will be healthy, and it will be self-sustainable, it will be self-reliant, it will regenerative, it will recycle, and it will self-feeding, right? So actually regenerative system says this, it is completely analog with the human body. So the way human body interact, react, and cooperate, similarly your economy has to be adapt, response, and react. this is the diagram actually how this regenerative economy can be designed by taking biosphere, where we are living, and the human sphere, where the people, human living organizations like human and are living, and there is a technosphere. So this is a complete amalgamation and interactive form of biosphere, human sphere, and the technosphere in a very circulated manner, where the regeneration, recycling is happening in each and every loop and every system, and further it is connected, so that the whole ecosystem, whole economy is self-sustainable. That's why they focus that the golden rule of priorities is that natural capital, we have to rely on the nature, we have to take care of nature, we have to utilize of the natural resource in a very planned way, and we have to develop our human capital, we have to develop our skill set, we have to develop our entrepreneurship and innovative approach to identify the problem, to convert that problem into a scalable solution with the sustainability aspect, and finally the capital whatever we will generate out of through this economy, that it has to be reused to again to make the system regenerative. So this is the essence of the whole regenerative economy. So I will not take much time because it's already time is taken much. So I will, this is, if you want to study further, then again I further converted into each and every part by making the whole economy diagram, where each one is circulatory. It is kind of a circulation. So everywhere consumption is happening and the waste is generating, we are recirculating, we are refeeding to the system. So it's like a circulation. So it's called a circular economy. Circular economy, circular system is like our blood circulation. It is like a circular system is integral part of or integral architect of the regenerative economy. So these things we have to include in each and every level. So this is the person, John Fullerton. He is the director at the Capital Institute. Actually, he is he was the employee at the Wall Street, JP Morgan, but he left. And in 2015, he came up with this regenerative economy. So this regenerative economy concept is very, very new. In 2015, he came up with these things. He also gave a principle how the regenerative economy can be adopted, and also the current market economy can be converted into a regenerative economy. And through this, where the innovation, entrepreneurship is the key to achieve this. And that's why our Honorable Prime Minister also said that innovation and entrepreneurship is the only way to make India Atmanirbhar. So these are the certain points. I'm not going to go in depth because already I have explained that how that country is responding to design a new regenerative economy where ecosystem and conducive policies, problem-solving approach, skilling, and the flourishing of the small and medium enterprises and the startups, and also thinking about sustainable and the scalable in each and every aspect of planning is required, not only at the government level, also at the individual level, at the household level, at the industry level, at the community level, or at the global level is required for to make this regenerative economy to happen and to function. So again further, so and as I said that innovation and productive enterprise are the key of for the building this regenerative economy. So I will not take much time, but as you most of you are in studentship, so you should understand what is the innovation. Actually, as per Schumpeter, Joseph Schumpeter, he said that innovation means it can be one of all these five, or it can be 5 of 5. So what are these 5 types of innovation? You can define. So you just imagine that if you are introducing a new or improved good and service, it is an innovation. Just imagine that if you are introducing a new method of production, is an innovation. Just imagine that if you are introducing a product from one market to another market in the first time, that's also an innovation. Just imagine that if you are exploiting a new source of supply, right? That's also innovation. Also re-engineering, also organizing the business management process is also innovation. So as per the Schumpeter, if an individual or an entrepreneur is including at least one of these type of innovation, then we can say it is an entrepreneur. So to define yourself or to say yourself that you are an entrepreneur. Innovation should be part and should be part of your business strategy, should be part of your startup approach. But if the innovation will be all of these 5 types, then the chances of survivability, chances of success is high. Consider the example of Ola and Uber and Zomato and Swiggy. These are the very, very easily, it can be copied into another model. But in the last 5 to 6 years, even the Facebook, social networking website, so these are still thriving in the market. Still they are flourishing in the market because their model covers, address all these 5 types of innovations. That's why they are thriving in the market. That's why they are successful in the market. So when you are designing any innovation, any solution, please try to include, please try to fit at least all the maximum number of innovations, all these 5 types of innovations into your business model. So I will not go in depth. It is just a thing. So to say that if you are self-employed and entrepreneurial, then we call it Sampitan entrepreneurs, where innovation is very, very important. But also by staying as an employee also, you can be entrepreneurial. We call it entrepreneurs. This is the only difference you should remember, keep in your mind from this slide. Let's go to the last slide. So what is the role of entrepreneur in our economy? So being an entrepreneur means I'm saying the innovative entrepreneur. So being the innovative entrepreneur, his role is to promote capital formation because they generate wealth. So they help in capital formation, and also they create large scale employment opportunity. So just imagine that 90% of employment is with SME, small and medium enterprise. Big corporates only they employed 5 to 10% of the employment of our country. So more and more startups will come. They will create more and more employment opportunity. So startups, innovative startups are the key basics for creating large scale of employment opportunities, and they promote balanced regional development because startups are spread across the country. So they're trying to create wealth in that particular region. That's why it's a balanced regional development happen when startups and the innovation grows in different pockets and parts of the country. Similarly, they reduce the concentration of the economic power. That means they break the monopoly of the bigger companies because they offer the better products with lesser price, with affordable way. That's why they break the monopoly of the bigger companies. And similarly, they also increase the gross national product and per capita income because generally startups having the high scope to cater to the global market. So they get the income and revenue from the global markets, other countries. That's why in addition to the GDP, they also contribute to the GNP, which called the gross national product, right? And further, they also improve the standard of living because they never only focused about their wealth, they never focused about the wealth of the shareholders. They also think about the benefit and the wealth creation of all the stakeholders associated with the value chain, starting from the sourcing of the raw material till the consumption at the customer level. So they never delineate, they never remove any stakeholders from the things. They always think about the benefit of all the stakeholders involved throughout the chain system. And similarly, they promote countries' export trade, and also they induce the backward and forward linkages because they believe on the connection at the sourcing till the customer level. And also they finally they facilitate overall development. That's why innovative entrepreneurs are very, very important to generate or to develop a better and a good regenerative economic system. And finally, this is another matrix. I will not go in depth, but I will only focus on 2 things. Already I've said that what is necessity driven entrepreneur, what is opportunity driven entrepreneur. I mentioned about what is formal, what is informal. What is formal? The formal means when you are going to register your company in government system, then it is formal. But if you're doing something business but not registered anywhere, it is called informal. And what is legal and what is illegal? Legal means both are registered. Legal and illegal, both are registered, but in the name of legal, you are doing something which is not permitted to do the business. Like you have registered a pharmaceutical company, but you are selling something drug which is not allowed to sell in the market. So this is called legal and illegal. And another is productive and unproductive. The productive are the entrepreneurs; those are focusing on innovation. What is the unproductive? Unproductive are the entrepreneurs which are not utilizing the innovation. They are just copy paste a business model, or they just copy paste a manufacturing unit, and they are just trying to produce and sell in the market. This is called unproductive entrepreneurship. What is innovative and what is replicative? Innovative is you are doing first of its kind, and it is intellectual property is part of it. And replicative, you have seen somewhere in the market, you have seen in another country, and you brought it to this country, and you are just trying to copy, just trying to produce it and sell it. So this is the kind of different kind of entrepreneurs. But what is required for our country to become regenerative economy? We need formal and legal. That is the first quadrant, which is formal and legal. So that means a registered firm that is engaged in legal activities. That is all the startups. The startups registered in the registered company or the government of India are very, very important because they are the formal and legal. And that means we can conclude our session that not all type of entrepreneurs are good for economic development. So which type of entrepreneurs are good? Productive entrepreneurs are the good for our economic development. Then small and micro firms are not necessarily synonyms with entrepreneurship. This is most of the time they say that a small and medium enterprise, that I'm an entrepreneur. No. So far you are not adopting, you are not using innovation as a key strategy or key part of the product development. You are not entrepreneur. You are just a businessman. You are just owner of a business, but you are not an entrepreneur. So whenever you are somebody saying that you are an entrepreneur, they should say that innovation should be the key integral part of the strategy and also the product development or the service delivery. So this is the things. And then another one is called low quality and informal entrepreneurship may have negative externalities. That's why through liberal tax system, where our government is trying to, and through the ease of doing business, our government is trying to take all these startups, all these business into the tax regime, into the registration legal regime, into the formal regime, so that more and more formal and legal productive entrepreneurs will be in the business, and not only they will create the wealth for them, also they will create for the stakeholders, also for the whole country, and finally for the whole globe. And the presence of the growth-oriented entrepreneur seems to be more important than general entrepreneurship, what I said. And so unleashing productive entrepreneurship, private sector development is necessary. So that kind means we have to give the market-driven system, and less government control and more market-driven is very, very important. So this is the end of my session. I hope you all have enjoyed. You hope you have got some concept of economy, and also correlating with Atmanirbhar and sustainability. Also, then what's the role of entrepreneur and innovators will play to attain that self-reliant and self-feeding that we call as a regenerative economy for our country. Thank you. Over to Gaganjit Singh and Dr. Shyam Sundar.
Right, sir. So thank you so much for such a beautiful session, such an informative session. Like, thank you so much for your presentation. You really justified the vision of our Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And so, like, we'll just because of shortage of time, we'll just go towards our Q&A session now. There are a lot of questions from attendees. Let's start with this very hot question over here. He got 7 likes as well. So let's see what is this. It's from Mr. Atish Kumar. Hi, how do you think India with its young minds can implement Atmanirbhar Bharat with China's deep penetration in Indian economy from 2014 onwards in major sectors of our economy like construction, infrastructure, and he's talking about other industries as well. Do you think without changing our policy we can create Atmanirbhar Bharat?
Okay, shall I answer?
Yes, sir, please go ahead.
See, without change, nothing will happen. Change is the only word which is true in the country or everywhere. So without change, nothing will happen. If you think that with the current status quo, you will achieve something bigger. It's not possible. So definitely there should be a need of policy change, structural change. And as I said, India has more than 60% of the population, that young population in the workforce. That's why we call India as a young country. But the soon we will not address this problem of unskilled one, it is going to be a curse to the country. Now we are just showing that we are the youngest country. But if you will not address that skill, then it is going to be a curse. In African countries, this is the situation. They are anarchy is there because of this, because the young people, they are coming to the road and they are doing all kind of mischievous things. So just to share you one thing, in country like South Korea, in South Korea, when one student graduate from a school or graduate from a college, 96% of the total graduated student or the graduated candidate have the double, at least to certification. That means once they will graduate from the college, they go for a second certification. They go for a short-term certification program. And in case of Canada, it is 85%. In case of USA, it is 88%. And in case of India, it is 4%. Only in India, 4% of the students, those complete the graduation, they go for another certification program to upgrade their knowledge and skill. That means it is the problem with us, individual, not with the country, not with the government. So far, we are not thinking about to upgrade ourselves. And no doubt there are so many trainings are available. But we ourselves is not interested to go for the second certification. So only 4% of India's graduates, they go for the second certification. That means you can see that our mentality. So then definitely we have to change at our level first. If I will give the answer. The second one is that some structural mistakes happened in the past. We started because of the globalization and liberalized policy of the government in 1990. Some structural defects happened, and we started over dependent on the countries like China and other European countries, and we have not strengthened our manufacturing capacity. And that is the reason why now we are completely rely on them. And the negative part is that in many manufacturing products, even you take the mobile phone, all the IP protected parts, it's already expired. So if India will want, if Indian entrepreneurs will want, if Indian businessmen will want, they easily will get the specification, technical specification. It's already available in the website. So they can just adopt it and they can do it. They will start manufacturing in India rather than relying on the product which is already, the IP is already expired for that product, and still you are importing from the other countries. So this is the situation and where we have to think about. So I believe the knowledge, the information is still not percolate down to the young minds, and the government system has to more robust, and they have to bring more structural policies and structural adjustment in the policy and the economy, and to make India Atmanirbhar. But it will take at least 10 to 15 years, not within 1 to 2 years. But it's my opinion. Because
Right.
now we are completely over dependent on other countries. So we have to withdraw from that by bringing step by step and structural adjustment in our economy and policy. Also individual level also need to be changed. I think I've justified up to something.
Right, sir. So there's a question from Mr. Alok. Deepan, can you tell us about more agile process and success key points to the such concept for growing individually, which has been invested by central government? So how will we grab such opportunities to create own products through proper capital funding? Please enlighten us more on direct contacts from central government with some links where we will get such facilities and investment funds from bank or certain procedures from central government plans like Atmanirbhar Bharat, Avijjan, and similar plans by our PM Modi ji to state government like Odisha. Any nodal officers contact from Odisha?
See, in Odisha, they have set up a startup mission. and skill development mission is there. So in startup mission, through the startup mission, they are doing so many programs. So you will get the contact details from TBI also. If you contact the Professor Mrutyunjay, he will able to connect, because TBI, KIT Research Park is very well and very strongly connected with the state government startup mission unit, and they are implementing so many programs related. And also, with proudly I can say that KIT TBI within 9 to 10 years, that KIT, and they have grown from a small TBI, only one scheme, to now they have more than 35 to 40 funding schemes, not only from the government. They have the schemes from the funding schemes and the plan and program for the from the industries, from the CSR, from the outside country organizations, also universities. So if you are in Orissa, then just go to the TBI and you talk with Professor Mrutyunjay sir, or you can talk with Sanjukta Badai. So they are the key persons. Those will help you a lot, and even they will give you the connection with the other states, because they are well connected with one of the vibrant technology business incubator in our country, and they are well connected with all ecosystem in every state. So if you're in Orissa, then I think that's the best place you should go and seek the information. But if you'll ask me, for me, actually, you being an entrepreneur, you should start thinking more about the investment, getting the money from the market rather than from the government, because government cannot provide funding to everybody, and it is just government can bring the policy, government can bring the interventions, government can give some initial seed fund, but not to all. So funding resource is very limited at the government level, but government should not be the first choice of all entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs should think about a open economy, open market, and they should be so confident on his innovation and convincing to the investor to raise the money. That is the best way to grow very fast. If you will think about the grant and the government money, then you are definitely going to delay another 6 months to 1 year in your growth process. But I'm not discouraging, but I'm just saying the truth.
Right. So, sir, there's one question from Vinaya. In your metaphor, the toes means like smaller entities must be able to access oxygen in order for the system to function effectively. How do we create an economic system with better circulation?
Yes. See, as I said that in our human body, there are so many organ systems, like kidney is there, it's functioning its own way, it has its own functionalities. Heart is there, heart is functioning its own functionalities. We have the eye and the brain and eye, then pancreas, then all the things there. So, but these organ systems are interconnected, and the brain system, the neurons, they are connected. There are only two things: the neurons and the blood circulatory system are interconnected with all organ systems. So similarly, when you're designing an economic system, there should be some functionalities, organ system like some functionalities, but they are interconnected, and they are connected with some flow of information, flow of capital, flow of wealth, and energy system, so that happening some fault happening in one place, that definitely that is going to impact at the other level. But if we know this system well, then we can easily address the root cause and we can correct it. As you have said that example, the toys, if you are getting some pain and when you are pressing something, when you are working, that's actually creating a pressure through that neuron to your brain, and brain is giving message to your blood system. You have to pump more blood to your heart, and heart is pumping, and so that you are consuming more and more oxygen. Again, it's going to the blood. Again, it's getting deoxygenated, and then you are exhaling the carbon dioxide. So it is a complete system. Similarly, in our economic, nothing is independent. Everything is dependent and correlated. If we are only trying to address only cause of that problem, and we are not only giving the medicine for that only that particular cause, particular disease, then you are not going to make the system healthy. It is just you are trying to like giving medicine. You just get the fever done, cured from fever. But actually, why that fever came? You are not going to address that. Similarly, it is that.
Right, sir. So due to time restriction, we'll take this last question, and this question will take it on innovation. So Mr. Anand is asking which type of innovation is required in agriculture sector.
See, I mentioned 5 type of innovation. This is the basic 5 type of innovation fit for any kind of innovation. So we call, because Joseph Schumpeter, who gave this 5 type of innovation, you just trying to see that you are fitting to at least one type of innovation out of these 5. Whatever you are doing, if because in agriculture, see in agriculture, what is the agriculture system in our country? In our agriculture, it is subsistence farming. Means our farmers have the small farmland and they produce what they will consume. They have never seen the farm as an enterprise. They have never seen farm as a profit things. They only know that this is the farm, it is for my own feeding because this is a small size. And also the market system is so fragile. So many times the ultimate sufferer is the farmer. So the system, so being an innovator, if you will develop, focus on the supply chain, being an innovator, if you will enhance the productivity, being an innovator or entrepreneur, if you will develop the market system, being an innovator, if you will develop the information flow, being an innovator, will develop the price discovery mechanism. This is where you can do the innovations. So you just see that where all these innovations are fitting in this out of 5, then I think that is done. But trying to fit, if your product or service is going to fit all the 5 type of innovation, then I'm sure that you will definitely thrive. But success can't guarantee, because your success depends upon your hard work, how you are interacting with the customer, and how soon you are changing and reflecting in your business. That matters. Okay.
Right. So as we are moving towards concluding this session, I request Mr. Dr. Shyam Behura to please give closing remarks on this session.
Hi, everyone. I think I'm really privileged also, as well as very thankful to Mr. Deepan Sahu, our alumni, doing great, and has been as far as his expertise is concerned, he's fitting onto the right platform where he's working and supporting the innovation as far as Government of India or whatsoever is concerned. Now, Honorable Prime Minister's Atmanirbhar Bharat, yes, that is a step forward, as Deepan rightly pointed out. But what he started was very, very crucial. And I think that was the very important part, is asking the right question. Because we normally go with the flow, but never tend to realize or never tend to stop to, ask, actually, what am I supposed to do, or what am I actually, my capacity enables me to do. That's very, very crucial. And then he went down so nicely talking about sustainability, talking about regenerative economy, talking about how we are, exploiting resources. Now that if you don't have resources, on what are you going to actually work on? So that's very, very important. Then hostel, hats off. I think that's one of the most practical thing every student or all of us will actually testify on. Because when we come to a new place, adapt to new things, converting our weak points to opportunities is one thing. I think that is the best example anyone can think of in a ground zero level. And that you need to just, utilize it in your life. Very nicely talked about that. He nicely said about India being in a balance between the capitalism and socialism. Now that's, a part of us concerned. Let's talk the tradition of India, the relationship in India, the emotional aspect of India. India talks about, always ascertaining to conducive environments, trying to satisfy people of every aspect. So there comes the very important part he mentioned about Rostow's model, where I think China's implementation of that model is an eye-opener, okay? And very important part of Rostow's model, which China took over, was human resources skill development. Because if our skills are not developed, then we do not have that confidence enough to go and work for. Because we have such a large population. I think if we implement skill development in a better way, they get that confidence enough to come to the market and actually work on. So HR, humans resources skill development is a very, very crucial point here. Overcoming extractive economy, I think that will overcome the market monopoly. And then we definitely can promote the regenerative economy. And this regenerative economy, as I said, should be more conducive, more holistic, you know, catering to the a bigger section at large. And this would ultimately promote entrepreneurship, okay? And then what happens is that, as he said, yes, when we have the young mind coming up with innovative ideas, there is a good competitive spirit comes up in the market, and you have more better products, maybe with much cheaper rate, which reaches our mass. So, but for everything, you need a proper skill development. You need to have confidence in yourself, need to look into you and what are you capable of. The 5 aspects of the entrepreneurship, yes, they are a need to have that, you know, put into the market, thinking about opportunities in the market, talking about investors in the market, and to bring them in to invest your project is one of the best part actually. Because if you are confident on your project and you promote it better, investors will creep in. I think I see a lot of startups in Odisha also in every aspect. You get a lot of investors from outside also. So that is more credible, okay? Because government is always there to support, but getting on your own investments is a more credible and more confident making factor when you're doing up with this. Again, the last part was about boosting the opportunities at every aspect, having confidence in yourself, the connectivity. As I'm from the medical fraternity, I would testify on that the connectivity among everyone is important. You cannot alone survive in an environment. You're always connected. If something goes wrong somewhere, you have your other parts ready or a plan B ready to, you know, ascertain those facts and take care and move ahead. So I think that is an excellent way of doing it. And definitely I'm very proud to also be a part of KIIT, because the KIIT technology business incubator, as he endorses, is, yes, I think it's one of the best in India. And I think everyone would thank Dr. Achyuta Samantha for, you know, going ahead with the project at that time. And I think it is supporting a lot of entrepreneurs there, and Deepan would definitely agree on it.
I'm the first incubator of the TBI,
yeah,
2009.
2009, yeah, okay. So that was, yeah, that's so you know, that's so nice of Deepan. And I think we all enjoyed this. It was more on a practical aspect. It was more about you thinking about what is the market availability and your confidence in getting into the market. I think Atmanirbhar, that's what he said, it's utilizing our resources to get things done in a much better way than, you know, trying to talk about stopping things doing, because government is always, as far as Indian government is concerned, their policies are oriented for its own people. So let's take off that. Let's take whatever Deepan has said so nicely. And I'm really thankful to VAV to be associated with us. Thank you, Gaganji. Thank you, Ron. And thank you everyone, Jaipal also. So, you know, supporting this initiative and taking ahead this webinar to a larger mass. And thank you so much.
Thank you all. And thank you, Dr. Shyam. And please convey my regards to Pro Vice Chancellor Madam and Samantha sir. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. So with permission of speakers and panelists, I would like to conclude this webinar.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate you being here. You'll be redirected to a survey post this session. Please help us improve with your valuable feedback. We are signing off for this session today. Thank you.
Thank you.